We, notice he includes himself. We shall not sleep. We shall not die. There is a generation that will not die. Paul included himself. Now, he screwed that one up because he obviously died, so he didn't make it. Well, here's another one. Little goof up here in the process, but that was his belief, that in his time there would be people, and of course the other people that died in his time didn't make it either, so it's obviously not that generation. But we shall not all sleep, but shall be changed. Now, this is one of these rapture verses, by the way. We'll come back to the rapture in just a little bit. But this is one of these little rapture verses where you're changed in a moment and whoosh, taken up, that sort of thing. Okay? But there is a generation that will not die. Question?
I've got a quick question. They mentioned the sting of death is sin, and the power of sin is the law. Is he talking about the law of God or the law of Moses?
He's talking about the law of Moses. What the doctrine is that sin is what produces death. If you recall the fall in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve sinned, death was introduced, so through sin, death comes into the world. And what is it that God uses to hold up against you as almost a mirror to show you what your sin is? The law. The Ten Commandments, the law of Moses, that which no one can keep. And so Paul's position was actually the law was put aside. It was a tutor. It was a trainer to show us how we should have lived. But since no one could live up to it, Jesus came. He died. He fulfilled the law. The law is now overcome. And so now Jesus, through his resurrection, has defeated death. And Jesus also has transformed the law to grace. The Pauline classic document is we are saved by grace through faith, not by works. Okay? Any other questions? Okay, so we've got a generation that will not die. We've seen it in Jesus' statement and Paul's statements. I have a little equation here. How long is a generation? A generation is 40 years. How do we know? Well, biblically speaking, there is a story. You've all heard it. You all know it. Once upon a time, there were a bunch of Hebrews that were in Egypt. They were slaves. And a guy named Moses came down and freed them. Remember? He took them out of Egypt and he led them down to Mount Sinai. He went up to Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights, right? And the people of Israel said, damn, he must have died. He's no longer with us. And so now we don't have a leader. Moses isn't with us. We need a God. So they fashioned a golden calf and began to worship it. Not only did they worship it, they committed, about a million-person orgy. And they had all kinds of sin and immorality. And Moses finally came down from the mountain. And he caught them red-handed, so to speak. And he threw the tablets down. And when he threw the tablets down, it shot out and killed about 20,000 of them. And now, God is mad at Moses for destroying the tablets. He's mad at the people for worshiping a false god and sinning. So Moses has to go back up the mountain, rewrite the Ten Commandments. By the way, I wonder if he did it right. We don't know. We never saw the original. So he had to rewrite the Ten Commandments and bring them down. As a result of that, God made a decision that that generation would not go into the Promised Land. They would have to wander around the Sinai Peninsula for 40 years. And by the way, this is so incredible, isn't it? If you look at a map, the distance from Egypt to Palestine is about an 8-day walk. 40 years they wander around Sinai and Sinai Peninsula. And by the way, what's amazing is they don't leave a trace. There's no archaeological findings. There's not even bones or anything. We can't find these people. So God obviously got rid of them really well, didn't he? Swept them under the sand. So they had to have 40 years in order for that generation to die. So generally speaking, the interpretation is that a generation is 40 years. Okay? That's how we get that little equation. Now, let's do this. We're going to find out in a moment that very significantly, certain things happen in history that show us when Jesus is going to come back. And I'm going to play the little game with you to show you how they slide their sliding scale of time. In 1948, a very significant thing happened in the world. World War II ended, and a certain country came into being. Israel became a nation. Now, we'll see in a moment why that is incredible. That is like the super sign that Jesus is coming. Jesus can't come back until there's actually a literal nation of Israel, if you take the Bible prophecies literally. So in 1948, Israel becomes a nation. If we compute the 40 years, what do we get? 1988? Well, that doesn't quite work, does it, folks? Okay, well, let's shoot another one out here. In 1967, there was the Six-Day War. And Israel reclaimed the Gaza Strip and actually was on the doorstep of conquering Egypt and kicking their butt. And they had the Golan Heights, and they had taken back all of the land that in the Old Testament Saul and David had conquered at the height of the Israel nation. So 1967 is pretty important, but let's go 40 years. What does that give us? 2007?
2007, yeah.
Okay. Close, but no cigar. Okay, well, we ain't done. We got another one here. We try out this one. In 1972, another event happened in which Israel captured the city of Jerusalem. This is phenomenally important. You have to have a nation, Israel. They have to regain the land. That's why the conservative Christians are adamant that there should be no peace for land with the Palestinians. They're adamant that anybody who makes a deal with the Palestinians giving up land with it is breaking the law of God and really screwing up bad. Well, in 1972, Israel took back Jerusalem. Now that's really important in prophecy. Jerusalem has to be under control of the Israelites, the nation of Israel, so that when Jesus comes back, there's a Jerusalem, there's a capital, and there's a temple. We don't have a temple yet. We'll get to that in just a second. But now, let's do 1972 and 40 years. What do we got?
2012.
What do we got? What do we have?
2 years from now.
2012? The Mayans have it right. Nostradamus has it right. The 40-year generation? Now, here, I'm going to be prophet here for just a moment. In 2012, the world will not end, Jesus will not return, and so they're going to have to figure out another date. And I'll tell you what the date will probably be. If you know what's on the temple site right now? What is it?
Dome of the Rock.
The Dome of the Rock, which is a very precious and important Muslim site. And it is exactly on the site of what was the Hebrew temple. Now, folks, if someone figures out either how to get rid of that baby or to start building a temple around or through or whatever, you guys better hold on, because they'll have a prophecy orgasm. Because when that temple starts coming into play, and there are all sorts of stories and beliefs that somehow Orthodox Jews are starting to plot to build this temple back. Because when we get to the Antichrist will go to the temple, declare himself to be God, and commit the abomination desolation in the temple. Well, the temple doesn't exist. So my prophecy is whenever you start seeing the temple, that's when these people are going to ramp up again and then we're gonna start figuring out the 40 years from that. So you see they have a sliding scale.